Welcome to the Steve Has a Chat podcast, where I call someone out of the blue with the record button on and hope to have an unscripted conversation about Microsoft business applications. Let's see how it goes. Enjoy.
Thank you for calling Microsoft. How can I direct your call?
Charles Lamanna, please.
Will he know what this is regarding?
Nope.
Please hold while I transfer your call.
Hello, this is Charles.
Hey, Charles. Steve Mordew. How you doing?
Good, good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Listen, I want to know if you'd want to be on my podcast that I've got where I'm kind of talking about, Microsoft Business Solutions.
Sure, anytime.
How about right now? I already hit the record button.
Sounds good enough. Let's get started.
All right. Have you got some time?
Yep, yeah.
Perfect. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you popped up seemingly out of nowhere for a lot of us on the Dynamics side about a year ago. I know you'd been with Microsoft for longer than that, and I think you'd been at Microsoft a long time ago, left and did something else and came back. But for a lot of the folks that I know, they're like, who's this Charles guy? Can you maybe give us a little background on how you got where you're at and, what you did before?
Sure, it's always easy to talk about yourself. Yeah, so I actually joined Microsoft out of college. I worked in the Exchange Online group when they were doing the big migration to Office 365 to really convert that into a cloud product. And kind of after doing that for about 3 years, I left and did my own company. It's a company called Metrics Hub. I was based here in Seattle, actually in Eastlake in Seattle, and it was focused on public cloud cost management and health monitoring. And the whole idea was with this big shift from colos and data centers to move to the cloud, that what it means to actually monitor and track the health of your service or your app would fundamentally change. So we did that right in the beginning. Azure was just launching VMs. Google didn't even have VMs. GCP didn't even exist. So it was really AWS and Azure were the only two games in town. So we went and we launched that, had some really great traction in the market at that big inflection point, and got snapped up by Microsoft about 5 years ago. So after that, I worked in Azure for 4 years or so. And then about a year ago, I took the plunge and switched over to BizApps to work on the Power Platform like PowerApps as well as Dynamics. And that was largely because I felt like BizApps were just like the way public cloud was 5 or 6 years ago, a really big inflection point and a big time of change. So I wanted to go be part of that again. So that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, kind of moving to the front end. I guess all those years in Azure, you're kind of working on the plumbing.
Yep.
And now moving over to BizApps, you're working on the front of the house, the stuff that customers, normal customers, not just IT people, engage with and deal with every day.
Yep, that's exactly right. Like what I joke is it's the first time I've worked on something that my parents use.
So your parents use Dynamics, huh?
No, that's not true. But they could use. They definitely weren't going to be using Azure, that's for sure. But yeah.
So I was doing a little bit of digging, when I was thinking about trying to call you, and it looks like you got your name attached to a lot of patents also. You've been involved in quite a few patents. Was that from your early days, or some of them seem pretty recent?
Yeah, so to be honest, a lot of it was in my earlier days where I did work, I wrote code, did architecture, things like that. So a lot of those were in the Azure days, and since it takes so long to work through the process, I think still there are ones being issued that we submitted with Microsoft like 3 or 4 years ago. But a lot of the focus is around distributed systems, some of the cloud stuff we did around like predictive scaling and predictive cost management. So a lot in those different spaces. But all I know is Microsoft gives you a little marble cube for every patent you get. I got a nice mound in my office. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, nice.
But that's the proudest part of it for me. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I know a lot of coders, but I don't know many of them that have patents. So that's a whole other level of coding.
Yeah.
This is pretty good timing. We just came off Ignite, and we're just going to be going to Summit here next week. And are you going to be out at Summit?
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I got 2 other travel or trips I have to do that same week, so I won't be able to make it.
Well, I know that there were several things talked about at Ignite, and then of course everybody left, and now they've been had a week or so to chew on those things. I'm sure they'll be popping up again. And I think one of the interesting things that was announced, which I'm curious what your take on the approaches is this ODI stuff and what the thinking is there and where you see that going.
ODI is near and dear to my heart. So people who don't know, it's the Open Data Initiative. And I got the pleasure to work on that leading up to Ignite across Adobe, SAP, and Microsoft. And the whole focus is really customers today, they have all this data in apps, and they use Adobe, they say use their Experience Cloud or Marketing Cloud, they use SAP for ERP or data analytics or whatever, use Microsoft with Dynamics and Office. They have all this data all over the place, but it's all islands. So basically, there's no easy way to go bring information together from marketing in Adobe, from customer engagement in Dynamics to whatever you actually have running on SAP. And this kind of is a hugely expensive problem, big cumbersome problem, and it becomes very pronounced these days because if you go to the future of AI and machine learning, you need to bring your data together and stitch it together across your entire data estate in your enterprise. Otherwise, you can't do any of the interesting transformative things. So what ODI is all about is making it easy for our joint customers across SAP, Adobe, and Microsoft to bring their data together. And we're going out and we're actually soliciting other ISVs and other application companies to go join ODI as well. All with the idea about returning control of the data to the customer and bringing it together in one place for the customer with one schema and one model to enable all kinds of really interesting scenarios. And I think it's early days. Honestly, it's very early days, but it's going to be one of the big forces over the next few years in terms of how people think
So
about
something
biz
to really
apps.
keep our eye on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are really going through that transformation just with your own products, getting them all onto a common, data service, and still have, some products to get over there in your own house. And already now we're reaching out to outside people. This is kind of the new Microsoft. We're not finished with this thing, but we're going to go ahead and start another thing. And
Yeah.
I've talked to partners many times who say, when are they going to finish all this stuff? And I say, you know what? I don't think that's a concept anymore. Completion is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Not in this world.
Yeah. And I'd say we're always going to be tuning and improving elements of the product and kind of adding the next wave of capabilities. And that's the benefit of something like a service, is because we can listen to all the telemetry. We can watch how customers are using the product, know what's working and what's not. We can continuously be improving it. So I think that's a huge value of the cloud. But I would say we are very much committed on making sure that we don't ship half-baked things, at least. And like we talk about like MVP as the minimum viable product, but we also talk about the MRP, minimal reasonable product, like what people actually could use or provide value or bet their business on. So I think that's a delicate balance that we work through, but in terms of always shipping new innovations, but we do have to make sure that they connect and work well together. And I think both of those things are big focuses for us.
So ODI, is this a standard you guys are kind of championing on CDS as the core component of this, or is there going to be yet another, public data service that is the standard, or are we hoping to try and get other people to standardize on what we're doing over here?
So I'd say for ODI, the destination of the data is Azure Data Lake.
Yep.
And CDS, for example, we already have basic support. We're going to have even more advanced support. We'll support native exporting to Azure Data Lake. And we chose Azure Data Lake as a technology to bet on for ODI, largely because it's very much about observational data and broad scale, huge scale, petabyte per day data. And Data Lake is the best technology really out there to go enable that across all of Microsoft's products. So we're rallying around pouring all the data from Open Data Initiative into that Azure Data Lake with that easy to discover way to figure out the schema and the entities and the business objects that are there. And CDS is a complement to it, because I think the interesting thing we're going to go do is we're going to find ways to drive the intelligence that you generate in that data lake back into CDS. So if you say do predictive lead scoring or entity classification, things like that, that can all feed back into CDS very natively and without having to write any code. So there's going to be really tight coordination and collaboration, but the data sync is going to be Azure Data Lake.
I mean, it does seem for the AI dream to become a reality, and people see, great AI demos with a bunch of, awesome information and actionable insights coming back, but it's only as good as the data set that it's running on. And, if your data set is limited to a particular silo, you're just not getting a very good picture, maybe some kind of a picture, but bringing in, more pieces of data into that pile that's being crunched has got to get us closer to that. So it seems like those two things have to happen for the third thing to work.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly the key data point to the whole future of AI and intelligence is you got to bring your data together and let the machine figure out what data matters. That's kind of the overarching idea.
Well, I'm not surprised at Adobe coming in, pretty quick. Obviously, you guys don't really compete head to head with Adobe. I think there's a little more of a competitive space with SAP, but I know there's been some partnerships formed there.
Yep.
Would you expect to see? I mean, I guess you start with a couple of big names like that, and make sure you get everything sorted out and working well, and everybody happy, and then you've really got something to go out and bring to other, large providers of stuff. And when you think about, something like Azure Data Lakes as a framework for this, there's really not many options. There's not many alternatives to something like that if anybody wants to go this route,
Yep.
really to get into that.
Yep. No, that's right. Yeah,
So
and
you've cornered another market.
I say it's all in a corner. I take offense a little bit, but I'd say it is all about being open because yeah, SAP and Adobe are the launch partners we're talking about, but we want as many other ISVs and apps to support the Open Data Initiative as possible. And I hope someday there'll be a website with thousands of logos on it talking about all the people that write to ODI. And yeah, Data Lake is just that place for us to go dump the information very easily and cleanly. Can support that scale. There's only 3 hyperscale cloud players in the game, and each of them only has one offering that has this capability. So there's not many places to put data at this scale.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and obviously we're a little bit biased towards Azure, so
Yeah, I would
understandably.
guess. Yeah.
So,
I've talked to you many times in the past, and it seems like every time I talk to you, there's something new that is on your plate, but nothing ever seems to leave your plate. Your day must be just insane from running from, ODI, spending some time on that, and then you got to jump back to CDS, you got to jump back to PowerApps, you got to jump back to, I mean, you're juggling a lot of things.
Yep, yeah, no, there's definitely a lot going on, and I think one of the things that I get excited about is kind of we're going through this interesting kind of platform convergence at Microsoft, where you have Dynamics on the side, you got Power Apps on the side, you got CDS on the side, and kind of we started this with the CDS 2 launch earlier this year. I'm going to continue it over the next 12 months, where eventually it will be just one thing. So it won't be as much jumping between different products and capabilities. There's just going to be one platform, one programming model, one extensibility model across all of Dynamics, plus the standalone apps you create with Power Apps, plus what we do and enable for Office 365 as well. So kind of those pieces coming together, I think the technical convergence and architectural convergence is good for customers and it's good for me. Maybe I can eat dinner at home soon. So,
Yeah, that would be nice because
yeah.
yeah, I've got you on my Skype, and I can see you frequently are busy in very late hours. So
Yep.
you're burning the midnight oil.
Yep.
So what is your role inside of the Dynamics org? Because I know you said you came over from the Azure, and now you've joined James Phillips' team. And
Yep.
I think coming from the Azure side, you probably have some relationships like with Guthrie and some of the other folks also. But it definitely seems like you've been tapped as a guy to really take this thing forward.
Yeah, I think so. In terms of like core areas I look after is the core platform for the customer engagement Dynamics apps. So for people who know it before, and probably people that would listen to this, it's XRM. So it's the XRM
Yep.
component, plus Power Apps, plus Flow, plus the Common Data Service. And I'd say there's really kind of 2 big elements to what kind of I'd say my job is, like my mission, like my 3-year mission is. And the first is to really go modernize and extend what we enable for the Dynamics apps. And that's kind of responding to and supporting this incredible growth the online service has in a way that maintains our quality and our performance and the reliability that our customers expect from a biz app platform. So that's kind of like the first thing. And the second one is really go do this transformative power platform element. And I think this is a really exciting thing because our kind of internal mission is we want to go enable the next 10 million developers. So if you imagine today there's something like 15 million developers in the whole world across all programming languages. It's a specialized skill. It's hard to get into. There's a huge shortage of developers basically anywhere you look. With PowerApps and with the Power Platform, including the capabilities we brought forward with XRM, we have this ability to go reach 10 million people who never would have been developers otherwise. You can go reach them and actually enable them to go build apps and workflows and dashboards and reports, really reimagine their own careers, and as a side effect, actually transform the companies they work for. And that's a fantastic combo because you're actually going and feeding all these apps, which are doing all kinds of great things in the industry and a huge growing business, and you're laying down the groundwork for this brand new platform that's going to change how people build apps in the future in a big way. And both of those are just on fire right now, which is part of the reason that we never burn the midnight oil to go enable, but just two really exciting pieces of tech, and it fits nicely into the overarching Microsoft value and vision, integrated with Azure and Office and things like that too.
Well, we're definitely seeing that take hold already. I mean, it's starting with not the pure citizen, but definitely with the tech savvy person at the customer end who maybe wasn't a business applications guy, but he's tech savvy, he's comfortable with technology, and we've seen that guy. I wrote a post about him recently. I called him Bob. Really do some pretty amazing stuff without really knowing dynamics. Now, so to be fair, he's got some technology background, and we still got a few wires left to connect up before a pure, marketing person, for example, could go build something interesting. But I see that coming. And when you think about Microsoft's goal to become a platform company, and you look at the hills that stand between you and that goal, obviously development costs are a big hill that keep a lot of people on the sidelines, keep them using Outlook and spreadsheets, keep them using other simple solutions, because there's a cost to developing, and where you guys are able to lower that cost, that's just going to go straight to the bottom line, I would think.
Yep, exactly. And I think it not only reduces costs, but it also allows companies and employees to build apps that they never thought they could build before. And that's kind of like that last mile of apps that today just goes unmet. Like you said, email, spreadsheets, pen, paper, it's all over the place. But when it's enough to create apps, you can empower business users to go do that. You actually don't have to wait. You don't have to live in a world where that last mile is not digitized. So I think the way you described it is exactly right. You want a platform for developers everywhere. To get there, we have to enable a whole lot more developers.
Well, and I think that, and I know, I talked to a lot of developers in the MVP community, and there's some consternation about citizen developer. There's some concern about, citizen developers going to step into my turf. But I think as we're seeing it now kind of move forward, sure, there's some things that citizen developer might previously have paid us to do, but they didn't need to. And it wasn't even, challenging work. It wasn't important work. It wasn't valuable work. It was kind of simple work. And I'm kind of happy to get some of that stuff off of our plate so that we can really focus on, more important and deeper things that are, hopefully going to stay beyond citizen developer for a little while. I mean, we know that fence is kind of moving right behind us, but I think there's still opportunity to stay ahead of that for a while.
Yeah, no, I think like as a developer, that's what gets me excited. You don't have to spend dev cycles building like forms or simple like UI layout logic. You can leave that and empower citizen developers to do that. You can focus on the cool stuff, AI, ML, distributed systems, IoT, the things that
explaining licensing models.
Yes, too soon, man, too soon. No, but I think you needed a few developers to do that. But exactly right. There's all kinds of other challenging things that we won't bring to everybody, but we'll actually increase the leverage of those building blocks that developers go create as well, because they're actually able to go create this amazing dev piece of technology and expose it to the citizen developers to reuse in their own solutions and applications and things like that too.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you get away with saying too soon without digging a little deeper on licensing, because that for a lot of partners and customers alike, it's a pretty confusing uh, uh, space, the whole licensing model. When you jump into business applications, maybe some customers thinking, oh, how much does this cost? And then you got to have this, well, that depends. And this lengthy conversation with lots of different variables, lots of options, different restrictions. There's an awful lot of stuff to explain. And what is the thinking inside about, or is there? Because so far it seems. I mean, I remember when they launched Dynamics 365. When they first launched it, I was at one of the PAC meetings, and a gal who's no longer there stood up before the group and said, "Good news, the licensing model got a lot simpler," and then proceeded to show us the most complicated licensing model we'd ever seen to date. And it continues to kind of evolve, getting more complex and more nuanced. Some of the things around team member and different restrictions, and it's really getting challenging for even a partner who studies this stuff to make sense of it all, much less a customer. And I got to think there's somebody there saying at some point in the future, once we've got a few of these things buttoned up, we're just going to simplify the heck out of that thing.
Yeah, so I'd say we definitely want to go simplify, and I think what's interesting is, I mean, from an intent perspective, I think we can, in one slide, explain what we intend each license to be used for. But the problem we have is, how do we actually go like legislate or legally protect some of that intent? And unfortunately, we're ending up being very, very leaky as we go through that process. Because the example I'd give is like team member. I mean, it's pretty clear what we want people to use team member for. This is for light use for specific scenarios under the broader app umbrella. That's what we want it to be used for. Like you want to go do a employee self-service thing in F&O, you can go use team member. You want to go record something, I don't know, like a simple lead, you can go do that from team member, but you can't do the full sales pipeline. Like that's what we want it to be used for. And in an effort to kind of go like make sure that's what it's used for, we actually made it a lot more complicated. Only 15 entities customization, only these actions, only these app modules. So I think we are definitely going back and thinking about the first principles that are driving all these different licenses and what we're trying to achieve, and seeing how we could make it simpler so that you could not only explain the intent, but also its enforcement in just a few sentences or a slide. And that's definitely something we're working through, but we created a giant mess, or we're cleaning up a little bit of a mess, because we had a bunch of licenses out there that we know weren't being used in terms of how we intended them to be used. And I think instead of trying to clean that up, we've actually gone and added a whole bunch more restrictions, which caused even some more confusion. So
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a segment of the population out there that wants to be in compliance and will go out of their way to make sure they are. And then there's a segment who actually doesn't care, and they're like, oh, looky what I can do with this, and isn't concerned that they really shouldn't be. And I know, we're obviously investing dollars in building new capabilities and new product, and it's hard to justify, well, let's go back and spend a bunch of dollars on creating the technical locks where a team member actually can't do anymore. We'll just solve that with paper for now, and we'll circle back to it later. I think that's probably where we've found ourselves getting caught is kind of, wallpapering for licensing over some of these things. And then, you've got that customer out there who's intentionally, violating the license, and then you have probably an even larger bunch that are not in compliance but have no idea.
yeah,
Never even saw the document, have no idea. All they know is they're able to do something, so they wouldn't assume they couldn't.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I'll say two things to that. The first is I kind of have a statement that I talk about with my team, which is if it's not in the product, if I got to go somewhere else to read it, whether it's help docs, tutorials, or license enforcement, it might as well not exist for most users.
Yeah.
And to the second point is, so we have to go bring enforcement to the product. So that is actually a major area of investment for the team right now. And part of the problem is we have to kind of go retrofit the stack that wasn't super license aware to go make it, I'd say, in a scalable way, expose licensing information to apps that are built on top of the platform. And that's work we're doing now. And over the next 9 months or so, it's like 9 to 10 months, we'll actually enable enforcement for things like team member and for things like talent and things for like the PowerApps P2, so that we can almost say, hey, here's our intent. And if you can do it with that license, it's allowed. That's an easier way to go about enabling it. People can go quickly test out what works, what doesn't work. And if they understand our intent, they'll understand why those blocks exist. So that is where we definitely want to go end up.
Yeah. I mean, you hate to have to spend that money because you really would love to. I mean, that's going to be a big undertaking. It's going to take a lot of man hours. It's going to cost a lot of money to go basically put in locks so people, will stay in compliance with licenses, and you'd like it if everybody just would, and then you could invest all those dollars in the front. But it doesn't sound like you guys are short on dollars to invest or manpower. It sounds like, I think, since Satya took over some time ago, and clearly he was a biz apps guy in the past, so he had a recognition, I think, of what business apps could mean to Dynamics at a level that neither of his predecessors did. And then bringing in Phillips, who is just an absolute gangbuster about business applications and probably the best salesman we've ever seen. And then, bringing you into the team, clearly there's a huge commitment here towards making business applications, that third leg of the stool, which we've heard it referred to as third leg of the stool for years. Just, it's always been the Dynamics is down in a barn on your side of town. but it definitely feels in the past year or two, and I'd say really since Phillips took over, is when I've got a real sense of that change.
Yeah, I'd say we're still in the barn. I don't know if you people who know the Microsoft campus, we're still in like a little bit of a satellite campus as we do this big construction effort to build the new campus. But the investment is unbelievable. I mean, we've scaled up the engineering team from 1,300 to 5,000 full-time employees. So just a huge amount of investment. Tons of support with marketing dollars. I mean, there's like Dynamics commercials and stuff like that. There's Dynamics digital advertising and all kinds of field awareness. And we've gone and matured and grown all these GSIs to be big Dynamics practices as well. So really, it's reached that next stage of investment from Microsoft. And it's exactly for the reason you said. It's to go build out that third stool to really go enable customers to transform how they do business. I mean, you got raw infrastructure, raw PaaS capabilities in Azure. You got the world's best and most well-known productivity platform with Office, and you need to have that business application and the surrounding Power Platform capabilities to go make it complete. Between those three things, just about anything is possible. So that's definitely where Microsoft is lining up strategically, and Microsoft is definitely putting their money where their mouth is. So it's a really exciting time right now.
I think another shift that I've noticed is there was really an almost myopic focus on Salesforce for a long time. Salesforce, the 800-pound gorilla in business applications, way ahead of you guys a while back, and a desperate effort to try and kind of catch up. But it also, and obviously everybody on the team is still cognizant of what they're doing and paying attention to what they're doing, but now it sounds more like, that's something to look at, but that's not our main focus. Our main focus is, let's build something with what we have that could be as good as it could be. And, Salesforce is Salesforce. It really feels like there's I won't say a de-emphasis on Salesforce, but maybe a higher emphasis on, instead of following what they're doing, let's build stuff that no one can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of that too is reflecting market reality. Like going and having just a CRM centric view is really insufficient to do the transformative things that are happening in the industry. Like we work with tons of customers that go from IoT devices or actual like product telemetry to go inform things like field service, to have techs go out and inspect, and then also empowering those same field service techs to go sell to customers. Like that's a transformational journey we're doing with a bunch of our customers today with Dynamics. And that's a very expanded view, right? Like just focusing on the category leader of the CRM category leader isn't a path to actually go help our customers do new and interesting things. And it's also not something that Microsoft is great at, right? We got Azure, we got Office. We should go build delightful experiences across all three of those elements for our customers.
Well, and I think it's funny because as you guys have taken that mindset and headed that direction, now we're seeing other companies out there. Salesforce is one, recently launched a product called Flow. You remember
Yep.
that?
Yes. Yep.
We're starting to see we've stopped chasing, and now we focused on our own knitting and what we could do best. And it's kind of funny to stick your head up, and now you find yourself being chased.
Yep.
So that's a good feeling.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing. Like Saki has a saying, which is envy is not a strategy, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
So, and I think that's definitely how we live and operate at Microsoft these days. Is envy is not our strategy, right? Figure out where customers want to go, and let's go help them get there using the mix of tools that Microsoft uniquely has.
I'm definitely feeling it. Well, I don't want to let you get off the phone without talking a little bit about ISV and ISV strategy. As you know, that's pretty near and dear to my heart and what we're trying to do. And I know that I've heard more noise from Microsoft about ISV recently than I've ever heard before. I still hear lots of partners talking about wanting to get into that space, but I tell you, project services is like a drug. It pays good money, but just like a drug, it's really a treadmill. And every time I go to some event, I'll have a lot of partners coming up to me saying, "Oh man, yeah, we're gonna build some IP, and they never do it. Some do, but most don't. They keep going after that drug money."
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that you think are the big motions, the big mountains that you guys are pushing for ISV enablement?
So I think definitely you're hearing more about ISVs intentionally and deliberately. We view ISVs as an absolutely core part of what we want to go achieve with Dynamics and a Power Platform. And I think there are three types of ISVs you want to go after. The first is the add-on type of ISV, somebody that just wants to go drop on additional capabilities or extensibility around our existing apps. Like a good example is if like you want to go have CPQ with your Dynamics customer engagement, we have a bunch of different ISVs we integrate with as add-ons to go do that. If you want to have
add-ons to the first party.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like if I want to, you take Aptis, you take Dynamics customer engagement, you put it together on one CDS instance, you have something pretty good. So.
And up until recently, frankly, that was the ISV opportunity with Microsoft, was build an extension to one of our existing first-party solutions.
Yeah.
Because first party wasn't even a term; it would just this is what we have.
Yeah, that's right.
Until the platform launch. Now that's really opened an enormous door that I don't know that a lot of ISVs are understanding or appreciating or grasping or even aware of. The enormous door you guys open for ISVs.
Yeah, and I'd say that's the second of the three, which is the standalone app. And what we mean by that is come take your biz app, come take just whatever app you want, build it on top of the platform, on top of PowerApps and the Common Data Service, and deliver that to your customers together with Microsoft. And that's a new and emerging and super strategically important offering from us, because that allows us to reach all kinds of different customers and departments and workloads that we don't offer as a first-party Dynamics application. And this is a space that I'm personally very excited about, because I think we're going to get to a future point where most biz apps that people create as a startup and as you get growing, they won't go build on Azure or AWS. They'll build on something like PowerApps and the Common Data Service, because there's better delivery, better data integration, and you can really focus on just the business processes that make your app unique, as opposed to building infrastructure. And that's, I think, where we're seeing a lot of early adopters, and we're kind of getting our ducks in a row to go make that a broad commercial effort for Microsoft. But we're super committed from a technology and commercial point of view.
It's kind of like you're creating a new space between, I guess, PaaS and SaaS.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Where we look at it's a new little hybrid space there, where it's not pure PaaS. There's stuff there, but it's not necessarily a full SaaS completed app. Maybe you guys can come up with an extra long 15-word term for that. That we can name it.
Yeah.
So any ISVs come to mind that are working in that second motion that happen to be talking to you on the phone right now?
You're tossing me a softball, no, but yeah. So Like, I mean, what you guys are doing is a great example of that. Like, you're coming and actually delivering that small to mid market offering around a tailored CRM like experience with Rapid Start, right? I want to make
Oh,
sure.
shucks. I'm
Yep.
surprised you thought you remembered, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yes. But yeah. So and I think that's a good example of how it's a space where Microsoft isn't super focused, but there is a really big need. And you can actually go take our platform to go build an application on top of it and go service that need. And you get all kinds of great technology benefits and over time, all kinds of great commercial benefits as well.
We've been working on that ISV solution for many years, and the previous iterations, which ran on top of the first party app, we got support from Microsoft, but it was mostly around the sales teams. And the figuring out how to build all this stuff and make it all work was pretty much all on us. And when we flipped this thing over to run basically under the first party app, so the CDS team and connected with you, and you connected us with several other folks in the organization, I can tell any ISV who's considering it that you guys have been tremendously helpful in navigating the landscape, pointing out the potholes. And I don't think we'd be nearly as far down the path as we are today with the old Microsoft, with the previous regime.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think, a worldview change as well as some basic principles and it's like guiding viewpoints in terms of what we want to do with our partner ecosystem, ISV ecosystem versus the first party apps themselves. But I think it's a great place to be, and it's definitely an equation that's looking really promising for both Microsoft and ISVs we work with.
I've also found the team has been much more open to suggestion, even to the point of completely changing, things, which is another welcome change. I can remember being asked many times my opinion about something that was already decided, and it almost felt like, why are you even bothering to ask? But I've gotten in lots of the pilots with you guys and gotten into lots of deep discussions, and actually have seen significant changes in licensing models or other constructs are being discussed. It seems like a much more amenable Microsoft than there was in the past. It's like you guys are open to better ideas, any ideas, good ideas, bring them on. Watching the MVP mail list, it's just been kind of amazing for me to see how responsive you guys are to things that people are asking for.
Yep, I mean, I think sometimes we forget about that in Redmond, but we build products for customers. Turns out customers usually know what their pain points are, and same for
Yep.
partners, right? So, yeah, definitely customer first mentality is how. I mean, we go to our ideas forum, we go to our community forums to actually influence our roadmap long term. That definitely is how we actually orient our strategy as well as what we're actually going and building, even sprint by sprint. And I think I still have a few scars from a few of those proposed features that we sent out to the MVPs. I think I got my
Yeah, we,
knuckles
we, we
wrapped a few
definitely don't
times.
keep our
So
opinions. We don't save our opinions.
yeah, that's for sure. But I mean that's how we actually go make a better product, and that's why the community exists to shape the direction, right? It can't just be lip service.
So we've got a new update rolling out, already started, I guess, and pushing through as we're speaking right now, right? Coming to kind of swirling around the globe.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, basically, we're getting pulled in every direction to go kind of spread the good word about what we're doing here, and I think that's across all the Microsoft conferences and third-party conferences as well.
Well, I know that we've heard a lot about what's coming. We've all, at least the MVPs, have all, read through all of the feature lists, and certainly on the download lists and other places have asked you guys to clarify it. So we're really pretty excited about what's coming. I think that we need to get customers to be thinking about unified interface because classic UI is days are numbered. We can see the end of the track for that one somewhere down in the not too distant future. And I think a lot of people were kind of holding off because we hadn't gotten enough parity to unified yet. But a lot of those gaps are being plugged with this with this particular upgrade that's being pushed through, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think for UCI, we're doing two really big areas of investment right now, which is closing those gaps with web client and also taking the opportunity to go smooth over a lot of the navigational elements, commanding, actions, things like that, which cause a lot of usability strife for our customers today. So I think it's not only a nicer looking, smoother looking UI, it's actually with a lot of user research and user testing to make sure that it's a more streamlined, smoother user experience as well. And the early telemetry is very promising. Like if we look at the Net Promoter Score for Unified Client for people who are using our sales module, it's over 30 points higher on Unified Client compared to Web Client, which 30 points is a big margin for Net Promoter Score. So we feel really good about the work that we're doing there. And just as we continue to close down those last gaps from a feature capability point of view, and we can start flipping customers over, we're really excited in terms of what it will do for end user satisfaction, end user joy.
Yeah, I think that the challenge, of course, with that'll be the existing users. New users won't know any different, and they'll love the UI. I know the very first time I looked at it, I thought, oh, this is terrible. I don't like this at all. And I spent almost no time on it all because it looked a lot different than what I was familiar with and what a lot of existing users are familiar with. But I don't want to say I forced myself, but I could kind of see the writing on the wall. So I spent some more time with the unified client. I'm a complete believer now. That is an infinitely better interface. The whole app model is infinitely better than what we had before. And I think that anybody who's sitting on the fence, you really needs to not only for their, for a better UI, but because eventually they're going to have to anyway. They really need to be focusing on that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no.
So let me ask you one last question.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I say I got to get going. I'm getting. All right.
Yeah. Well, I've had you here for almost 40 minutes, so
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good about that. One last question: of all the things that are out there that we're all looking at, and that you're working on, and that you're excited about, what would be one that would come top of mind that you feel like, man, partners are just not grasping how awesome this particular thing is, that they're either giving it not enough attention or just aren't appreciating. I love to find those hidden gems because there's so many things as partners we're seeing. Sometimes it's not obvious which ones are really going to be, the things that we should focus on. But you're on the inside. You're putting this stuff out, and you know that, man, if this thing catches fire, this is going to be huge.
Yep.
What would be something that comes to mind that we should really be looking at?
So I'm biased. This is near and dear to me, but I'm really going to go with PowerApps, and I mean PowerApps as an app platform for IT departments, even beyond ISVs. And what we're seeing today with the momentum in the market is just unbelievable. I mean, incredibly fast organic growth, and from both the Office community as well as the Dynamics community, to really almost an explosive degree. We're getting, I think we're doubling it in, I think, every 4 months or so right now, the total number of active users on PowerApps, standalone PowerApps built by IT departments and things like that. And talking to other people at Microsoft that have been around for a while, they say it reminds them of SharePoint, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, right when it hit that inflection point where it went from small to huge. And now's the time to kind of go get involved in that. I have customers that are begging me to help them find a qualified partner to help build PowerApps, and I'm struggling to go find people who have capacity. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity out there in that space right now.
Partners were very slow to make the move to the cloud. They're very slow to make any move. It's like your best asset and your worst enemy sometimes because they're very difficult to get to move. There'll be a percentage of them that will run out there like we do, and a bunch of other guys I know that are sitting out there intentionally riding the bleeding edge. But by and large, they're sitting there, and it takes a while to get them to move. And frankly, this is probably going to be the best option because now customers can start moving without them, and nothing will get a partner moving like his customer starting to do some work.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Is that growth on PowerApps? Are you seeing that kind of evenly distributed across Canvas and model driven, or is it really mostly a Canvas thing that's really blowing up?
I would say from a lower end app where it's like not mission critical but important to business process, we see more growth in Canvas apps. But for the mission critical enterprise apps, those skew towards model driven. And that just reflects, I think, some of the history for each of those app types. Yeah.
And you're saying both of those are blowing up.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And I would say for people that have Dynamics experience, you can, with a slight pivot, actually expand your total addressable market by quite a bit. Because all those people who want to go do customizations or business process around SharePoint, they actually are looking for PowerApps devs now. Because PowerApps is that customization story for SharePoint. And same thing for Teams. Everywhere Microsoft's going in the productivity space, we're so far and away the number one. It's actually all PowerApps. And the skills that you already have from Dynamics or from XRM actually carry over pretty nicely and cleanly.
Well, I can attest to that because we've made that transition ourselves from Dynamics, from a pure Dynamics CRM partner over to, I'd say we're primarily a PowerApps focused partner now, and I can definitely tell anybody out there who's concerned or thinking about it that your skill set is immediately transferable. I mean, you can get to work on that right away. No reason not to, and it is the future.
Yep. Amen.
So Charles, I appreciate you, being a good sport about taking my call and giving me this time.
Yeah. Next time I might not answer.
Well, you'll see me pop up. You'll see me pop up on the caller ID, and you'll know what's up. Yeah. What's the next event people are going to see you at?
Let's see. I don't know. I'm definitely doing some coming up. Let me think. We have the Gov Summit. I'll look. My trusty calendar can tell me. Otherwise, we might be wrapping over to next year. We just announced a new BizApp Summit next year.
Yep.
So that definitely I'm going to be there. That's going to be a great show.
In Atlanta this time, right?
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. I'll be at the PAC. So my next event is the PAC because I'm missing the
Okay.
UT.
So some of us will see you. Yep. Yeah, some of us will see you at the PAC.
Yeah. The Partner Advisory Council. So I'll be there about a month from now. So.
Sounds good. Well, I will see you then. Because
Awesome.
I think you told me earlier that you're not going to the summit this year, right?
No, I'm not, unfortunately.
All right. Well, I'll see you at PAC here shortly, and thanks a lot for the time, man. Go eat some dinner.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.